Welcome to Last War with the Lotus, Episode 1, Heroes.
Welcome. My name is Lotus. We'll be talking about Last War, a number of different topics. This will be the first video in a series. Throughout the series, we'll be focusing on ways to prioritize improving your base, your heroes, your research, in an effort to become a strong endgame player and not a paper tiger, along with ways to improve getting there along the way. Each video will cover a topic so that if the questions about heroes or base upgrades or research, you can go to that video and not wade through a long video consisting of topics that you're not interested in. So this video today, we'll be talking about heroes, not only how to upgrade them, but also how to employ them in ways to win battles. When you start off the game, you don't have a squad that looks like this, right? You have a squad that more looks like what we have near the bottom. Start off with some blues, maybe get some purples. It's very exciting. You start getting Mason and Monica, and you get on your way. And then along the way, you start picking up some golds as well. So the biggest thing that I want to talk about when it comes to squad tactics are the buffs that come with deploying similar type troops. On top of the screen, we have this is showing everybody. Next to that, these are the tanks, the missiles, and the helicopters. Depending on how you deploy these troops, it may give you some pretty massive buffs. Deploying 5 of the same type of troop, so 5 tanks, 5 air, 5 missiles, will increase your HP, your attack, and your defense by 20%. This information can be found if you come down to your squads and you click on the little eagle in the top left-hand corner. This information is right here. Right at the bottom, deploy 5 heroes of the same type. You're going to get HP, attack, and defense by 20% increase. You do 4 plus 1, that is maybe 4 tanks in the air, 4 missiles in the air, whatever, 15% boost. 3 plus 2, so 3 of the same type, 2 of the same type, 10% boost. Then finally, the lowest buff you can get is 3 hero types of any type, and then one of second type and 1 of a third type. And the types matter. The top of the screen shows you why. Your aircrafts are going to be better than your tanks, right? They receive less damage from tanks. Your tanks are better than missiles. If someone's deploying missiles against you, you want to deploy tanks because your tanks will receive 20% less damage. And finally, your missiles are better than aircrafts in the sense that missiles will receive 20% less damage from aircrafts. So how you deploy your squad should be based on how your enemy is made up of. So a big example of that would be those big mob bosses we get, code 84, code 67, whatever they are. And it'll tell you, hey, missiles will get 50% more damage. Well, that's just that event, right? They're maximizing that. But really, if you look at this, if you look at the battle report, you'll see that the troop type for that big boss is all 5 of the same thing. So if you counter that, say they're all 5 tanks, and you counter that with all 5 air, you're going to maximize your score in that event. And the same applies in PvP, and the same applies in the attack truck, and the same applies when you're clearing around your base. How you deploy your troops, the formation you use, is really important. The second thing I want to highlight, obviously you have 2 different types of troops. You have, 3 different types of troops. You have defense troops and you have offense troops, and then finally you have support troops. You'll see a support icon with a plus sign there on Marshall in the back. Defense goes up front. They absorb the most damage. DPS or offense goes in the back. And then support, generally speaking, go in the back. Marshall, if you equip him with good enough armor, he he can double as a front, but I don't really put him up front because I want him to last as long as possible to get all the buffs I can out of him. So far, we've covered squad makeup. We've covered the buffs that come with deploying your heroes in different formations. We've covered how to counter your enemy's squads in terms of the lineup. So now I want to get into the individual heroes themselves and how they're different. Because, I mean, really what we're looking at is a bunch of faces, right? Not only are they different troop types, tanks, missiles, and aircraft, but they all have individual skills that make them unique and deployable in unique situations. Some of them are so good that you can deploy them in just about any situation, but some of them have unique capabilities that may maximize your scores or get you to eke out that last win that you couldn't think you could get. So I've got an example of basically my alpha squad here. Squad 1, you know they're Squad 1 because they have the little 1 in the top right corner of their picture. Generally speaking, these were some of the first gold heroes that were accessible, but it just so happens that they were quite good as well, right? I kind of switch Williams and Carly around based on what I'm seeing in my enemies. They're both tank types, but if I want a second tank up front, then I'll throw Williams in there. If I want an aircraft up front, I'll throw Carly up there. But basically, it's not just about the troop type, and it's not just about what they look like. I don't ask me why this isn't a missile type, but it's a tank. What you're looking for is the individual skills. And granted, these are 5-star skills, so you're not going to get all of the benefit of them until you're 5 stars. But I want to highlight Kim's third skill, right? This is an epic skill. You're boosting the energy damage, which is the type of damage she gives, by 30%. No cooldowns, no timers. This is a passive, consistent buff. It's amazing. So if you're looking at all these skills and wondering what to maximize that, right? Get 5 stars on Kim as fast as possible and get this passive as fast as possible increase. But also her number 2 is pretty good too. Every 10 seconds, a ton of damage, right? So with these buffs for the stars, you actually get a shorter cooldown. The cooldown on this is actually 9.09 seconds, but it says 10 seconds. With Murphy, the skills I want to highlight with him are his second one. His defense skill is awesome, but notice it's physical damage reduction, right? That matters. If the enemy that you're fighting is primarily energy damage, this buff doesn't do much. There will always be some physical damage involved, but if they are primarily energy damage, then Murphy may not be the best front person for you. There are other heroes who focus on energy damage reduction. But generally speaking, fighting zombies, Murphy's awesome. And so this buff is really good. You want to maximize that as fast as possible. And even though it says to the front row units in that white paragraph, you see at 4 stars, it applies to the whole team. So not only is the front row units covered for most of your growth, once you get to mid to end game, then your whole team's going to benefit from that buff. With Williams, I want to highlight his second skill, and this is boosting the defense, energy or physical, right? Boosting the defense of your front units. And again, once it gets 3rd star, now it applies to the whole squad. So that's great. Cooldown 9.09 seconds. So it's not all the time, but it is a nice boost, especially when everybody else's like big attacks are happening and his defense goes up. That's great. It's good stuff. With DVA, you're looking at her second skill. It's massive damage. DVA is in just about every squad that I run, unless it's completely anti-air because her damage is so high. But that 718% every 9 seconds is pretty massive and does really good against both zombies and PvP. Then finally, Marshall is a buff type, support type tank, so he can still do some damage, but really his strength is in this second skill, which increases the attack of all team members. Again, this is 5-star maxed out by 16.5% for 6 seconds. But if you get to 5 stars, then you're talking about for 8 seconds. The crit rate goes up, the attack boosts go up, and the cooldown is reduced to 8.5 seconds roughly because of the third skill. So if you're going to maximize this one with Marshall and really focus on him, you really want to focus on this also, the third skill. That way you get that buff more often. So that's just an example of how I look at heroes and decide who to run with. Again, I think of the enemy squad, what's the best makeup to deploy against them to counter their troop types. And then as far as the individual heroes go, this is how I upgrade them. It's not to say I don't upgrade a lot of other things. You know, to only have one troop type or only really have one alpha squad is a really good way to start, but eventually you're going to want to work in specialty heroes in case you need to deploy a missile type. You have a Tesla, and then maybe you have a Tesla and a Swift. That's fantastic. I only very recently got a Swift up to the point where I can deploy him also. As you can see, Stepman doesn't have anything going on because I just got him. I mean, literally haven't done anything with him other than leveling him. So those are mostly, those can be used PvP or zombie. There are some other heroes that can be used in zombie attacks. Monica's got some really good damage. She's actually a pretty decent HP too, so I've used her up front, especially early game, as a tank to absorb a lot of damage. But if you look at her second skill, she's doing a ton of damage and additional damage to zombies, monsters, should they call it. So that's great. That's fantastic. And she increases the rewards that you get when you defeat zombies. So again, early game, everybody needs resources. Monica's a great one to get because you're going to get increased resources when you defeat map zombies. So something to keep in mind. Just highly recommend reading through all of them and understanding what they can do and how they can improve your scores. Mason, fantastic early game character. Eventually he'll be gold and he'll come back into my alpha squads potentially. But boosts back row hero damage versus monsters. So again, if you're fighting those zombies, you're fighting those big bosses. Once he's gold, I'm going to definitely throw him in there for the code 87 worth or whatever they're called and try to get that boost of damage. So they all have unique capabilities. Highly recommend reading through them and understanding what they can do for you. But primarily when I'm picking them, especially when I'm at this point where they're all pretty well skilled up, starred up, leveled up, I'm mainly looking at troop loadout of the enemy and trying to counter it. Moving on to upgrading heroes and kind of how to prioritize that. I mentioned this in passing before, but you really want to pick an alpha squad, and it's going to change, especially early game, because you just have what you have. But you want to focus on your alpha squad and really upgrade them, especially the gold heroes. Obviously, you're going to want to upgrade your purple heroes while you have them. In that alpha squad, as you can see, Monica and Mason got quite a bit of upgrades because they were in the alpha squad for a while, right? But once you get to the point where you're mostly gold, you're going to want to stop upgrading your purples and get to your gold heroes to maximize the resources that you're putting into your heroes. So for your alpha squad, once you've kind of got that loadout, you really want to focus on them for gear, right? These 4 pieces of gear. The 2 on the left are offense, the 2 on the right are defense. For stars, you see 5 stars. It's not easy to get to 5 stars, but it's doable. their power and usefulness increases greatly, especially at 4 stars. 5 stars gravy, but you want to get to 5 stars for your alpha squad as fast as possible. And then how I think about um, prioritizing which hero to upgrade. Generally speaking, especially for my alpha squad, I'm upgrading the DPS first, or the offensive heroes first, right? So that would be DVA and Kim in my squad. It just so happens Kim is ekes out DVA a little bit in the damage, and she's really good still, even at level 30. So she's my main focus for gear. Now that I'm at the point where I've pretty much maxed out skills. Talking about gear, when trying to understand how to um, assign gear and um, create gold gear, like there's a lot of different options going on. Your end state is obviously all the heroes that you use regularly have gold gear, right? Early on, it should be a goal that all of your alpha squad has gold gear. Purple gear is great, especially early on. It's better than blue, it's better than green. Purple gear is good. And I have a lot of heroes with purple gear on, right? Look, purple, purple, purple. It's fine. However, that's because I'm focusing my efforts, my resources, the timers on my alpha squad to get them all where Kim's gun is, right? And then at that point, I can start trickle down, upgrading the other folks in my second squad, my third squad, and so forth. But I wanted to get at least all my gold heroes some level of gold gear, because even a 0 level gold gear is better than like a 10 level purple gear. So, step by step, I would recommend getting all of your heroes to purple as fast as possible. And then scratch that. Let me take that back. Get your alpha squad to purple gear as fast as possible. Once you have more purple gear than your alpha squad needs, that is, all of your 4 slots for all of your alpha squads are at least purple, stop giving purple gear to your heroes. Okay? Start dismantling them. Let me show you what I mean. Go to my base. I'm going to come up here to my gear factory, and this is where you craft gold gear. But you can also dismantle gear for resources, right? Right now I have greens and blues to dismantle, so I'm going to do so. Now I have more resources to build more weapons. If I come over here to merge, what you're trying to do is get as much gold crafting material as possible to make gold weapons so that all of your alpha squad has gold gear. So once you have all of your alpha squad has purple gear, now you're going to focus on getting all your alpha squad gold gear. You're not going to give any more purple gear away to your heroes. Once you've got all gold on your heroes, now you can give purple to the rest of your heroes. All right. You're still going to need gold resources, but by that point, you want to get all of your heroes to at least purple, and then you can focus on dismantling again. Um, so when you dismantle, again, you're going to merge these resources and get it to the point where it's usable. So now I have 1,500. If you go too far, accidentally you make a gold and you didn't mean to, you mean to go purple, you can always disintegrate and bring it back down. There's no erosion of resources, right? You don't lose anything, which is great. And then also another nice thing is, say you have a purple piece of gear that's like level 10 that you've been using. Um, you can dismantle it and you get not only the resources back, but you also get the upgrade ore that you use to upgrade it to level 10 back as well. So there's really no um, risk in upgrading something and like losing that forever, at least with the gear, which is fantastic. So my focus on which of the four pieces of gear to upgrade first, I upgrade my offense, the left two sides first, on my DPS on my Alpha Squad. So let's try that again. On my Alpha Squad, there's three back row units. Um, I'm focusing on their offensive weapons first. So you'll see Kimberly, she's got pretty good weapons. You'll see DVA also has pretty good weapons. So that's my focus. And then I'm focusing on my tank's defense, so the right side for both my two front row guys. And then I'm going to round it out. So you can see that in play right now, right? So you see I'm rounding it out by equipping these level 40 defensive pieces of equipment on my DPS to let her last longer and cause more damage. I equipped these level 40 offensive weapons on my tank because while he was absorbing damage, he really wasn't doing much. I haven't finished upgrading Carly's gear, right? So I still could upgrade it right now. And now she's got level 36 data chip. Awesome. So that's gear, in which we talked about generally a strategy to equip your heroes, focusing on your alpha squad, get them all to purple. And then once they're all purple, start dismantling that as you get new ones in, right? Don't dismantle the ones you're using, but as you get new ones in, which you will, dismantle those for crafting resources to make golds. We talked about within the specific heroes how to equip them first, how to prioritize that, focusing on their offensive heroes, their offensive weapons, and then finally your defensive heroes, their defensive weapons, and then rounding that out once those milestones have been met. In terms of leveling your characters, look, you're not going to have gold heroes to start off with. So you're going to level what you have. Um, and as you can see, I did that for a long time with Monica and Mason. Some of those levels that you see in my other purple heroes are because of um, honorable campaign, right, where they're getting levels automatically by completing those. But generally speaking, I focus on my gold heroes, getting them to my max level for my HQ as quickly as possible. I think that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any additional tips that might help beginning to mid player, let me know. I'll be glad to add them. The next video is going to be about bases and upgrading those. And if you have any questions that are specific that you'd like to see a video on or see how to do things, I'd be glad to walk you through that as well.